Okay, well, thank you for making it out today. With this presentation, I'm going to review the use of color in Ethiopic manuscripts over the last 1600 years. Largely, this is a review of the rubrication practice in Ethiopic manuscripts. And if rubrication is a new idea to you, it's simply the use of red coming from the in text, where rubri is the Latin word for red. And in ancient writing, red text takes on a number of functions, has a number of roles to communicate or signal something to the reader that's different about the text. So we'll see that maybe it has some additional practices that are not found in other languages. So, and to be absolutely clear, I am talking about the use of color in text, meaning words, letters, punctuation, not illuminations. That's a whole other field of study. Just want to be clear on that. We'll start in the middle of the 4th century and work our way back up to the present day, or at least until last year when this book was published, which I'll pass around. So this book introduces a 21st century innovation I think is just fascinating. I come into this by accident. So it introduces a new rubrication practice with modern technology that you could not have done in the past. It would be unthinkable. And that'll be my last slide. I'll conclude with that. So what I will not be able to speak to, unfortunately, is I had sort of wished to review all the full cast of characters and the unlikely circumstances that brought them into the story, go over their backgrounds and mythology that leads through it. This won't be time for that. It's all very, very fascinating. But I hope this presentation will pique your interest enough that you'll want to learn more, and I'm around to point you in the right direction. Okay, so with that, are we ready to go down this rabbit hole back to the 4th century? Okay, well, this rabbit hole is dug by rascable rabbits, so we're going to move fast. No Radagast fans? Okay. Okay, so the fellow here is Abu. He was a Miaphysite refugee from the Byzantine Empire. He's actually Roman, and following the Council of Chalcedon, where in about 350 AD, there's this schism between the Miaphysites and the Diophysites. And short of it is, things go south for the Miaphysites, and so he goes south. He goes south to Ethiopia along with 8 others. They arrive not as refugees, but as missionaries who are now going to help spread the Christianity within the area. Garima is a man of many miracles, and the one of interest to us is his writing of the 4 Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the Ge'ez language. He does this at the end of the 4th century, or maybe it was early 5th century, but he writes it in Ge'ez. And this becomes the oldest surviving manuscript in the Ethiopic corpus. It still exists today in the Abu Garima monastery. It's been digitized. It's scanned online. You can review it. We'll see some screenshots of it. So that's the oldest work that survives. About 50 years prior, Abuna Salama Kasata Barhan, aka Saint Frumentius, has translated the New Testament into Ge'ez. That work does not survive, but may have been around at the time of Abu Garima when he wrote the Gospel to inform the work he did. So we don't know if Frumentius has used rubrication, but he may have. Okay, what makes his writing of the Gospels a miracle, these 322 pages and 17 illuminations, is that he does it in a single day. But there's some divine intervention here. God Almighty has come in to hold the sun in the sky, keep it from setting, so it has enough light to complete the work. Not vision that should have been worthy of a co-authorship. No. So it has an extra long day to work in. The Gospel, the first page of this, the oldest surviving manuscript, does start with color, with this wonderful rainbow, which is, I think, just neat. And we see here the decoration on canon tables. And I'm presenting this just to show the availability, the full spectrum of color that was available to scribes, should they choose to use it. Ink and paint were essentially one and the same at the time. Okay, much of the manuscript is faded. This was a clear shot I could get of the Gospel of Luke. And it starts off with this black, red pattern that just signifies the start of a section that is of some significance, the start of a chapter in this case. So three of the Gospels are done in this way. The Gospel of Matthew, so Matthew is in the inverse, red, black, But we see here just a page in the middle. The text at the top looks like its rubrication is used for a column heading. It's not quite that. It is a subject heading, but the subject it's a heading of may reside in the middle of the column, indicated by the chiro. I've blown it up in the middle and to look at the margin a bit more. So what the margins of Ethiopic manuscripts are always a fascinating place where extra things happen. So we see the numerals, black numerals for verse numbers, red for canon numbers, and a red divider. And then, yes, the chiro is in red with streaks of black throughout. So there's red and black going on. And I think what may have happened is that Dorima may not, has used the same reed pen for both red and black, that did not properly clean away the black residue. So there's streaks of black within the red, is my guess. Not to say that he was suggested he was just too lazy to clean his pens, but he was under a great deal of time pressure. Remember, at some point, so to keep waiting. But of course, you could have avoided this altogether. You just used UKRI pens, acid pens. So these are Arando Donax pens, the same species of reed that would have been available to Apagrima and the other scribes we'll see today. Going further, at the end of a gospel, there is these colorful lines. Refer to this as a proto-potic. Potics just mark the end of sections, a chapter, subsections as well. We'll see how they evolve over time. In the same, in the Apagrima monastery, there is the second oldest manuscript in the Ethiopic collection, which arrives 100 years later, and it's much the same as use of rubrication. But we now see at the top there are, whoops, wrong one, instructive rubrics for the priest. This is information for the priest that he does not read aloud to the laity. Again, the section headings and some awkward insertions of what we see as perhaps subsection headings that may have been done at a later time. They do look kind of out of place. But what's most interest to me here, what I find most fascinating, is the first arrival of bichromatic rubrication in the Ethiopic full stop. And we'll see lots of this. So the bichromatic rubrication, meaning in both black and red, appears in the 6th century. To get to the third oldest manuscript in the corpus, we have to jump ahead 700 years, unfortunately. There is this gap in the Ethiopic corpus where manuscripts are simply lost to wars, looting, invasion, fire, and so on. This, of course, is from microfilm. We'll go to the 14th century, where it looks visually much the same. Oh, right, I should point that way. Too much. No? Okay, yes, back to the 14th century. So the Harig at the top is in its final visual form, but not final functional form. We'll see a bit later. And now the bichromatic rubricated full stops have become the norm. The majority here, marked in blue, is a non-rubricated full stop. So it's interesting how the practice is beginning to displace non-rubricated text. And going to the 15th, 16th century, now the Harig has evolved as something much more grand, referred to as a grand Harig or a Zoda Harig. And it may be beyond the skill of the scribe to compose this. It may have been composed by the illuminator. Perhaps the scribe and the illuminator could be one and the same person. Sometimes, not always. They are different skill sets, so never certain. By the 18th century, things are starting to settle down with respect to rubrication, and the format layout of Ethiopic documents. This is not a hieroglyph, but just a decorative mark. We see the bichromatic full stop is arrived at its kind of most definitive form that you'll see across manuscripts by different scribes and at different eras going forward. This is really, yeah, the distinctive form of it. And I was once told, residing in Ethiopia some 30 years ago, that these 5 inner red dots within the 4 black dots is forming the sign of the cross within the mark, and that the red dots are it's the blood of Jesus as he bled on in crucifixion. That I've heard a few times, but I think it's not well known. I've mentioned it to other church people, experts, and they didn't know what I was talking about. We have inverse bichromatic rubrication that appears within the striped rubricated text. That's kind of nifty. Other punctuation gets rubricated. Yes, numbers and a semicolon example here. And why I like bichromatic rubrication so much is that this is where a scribe really gets to play and express himself artistically. So the job of the scribe is to copy Holy Scripture verbatim, not changing a word, not changing a letter, unless you change the Scripture itself. Mm-hmm. But punctuation and numbers are fair game. You can do what you like there, and boy, do they. So I'm not having time to take you through 101 amazing, beautiful samples of rubrication. I've consolidated them here best I could from what I've cataloged. And my favorite, I'll point out, is the full stop with the flamethrower at the end. So for Jan and variation selectors inside there. Okay, so and punctuation and numerals kind of lend themselves to this form of decoration because they are composed of independent parts that are not connected together. Unlike letters, which are a single connected glyph, punctuation is made up of these separate pieces that can lend themselves to separate coloring without confusion. We'll see this with numbers. Mm-hmm. Also, I tried to just come up with a categorization of bichromatic rubricated numbers as per the component that was rubricated, just to see what categories kind of shake out from it. And this is what I come up with. So he said, as I said, maybe I didn't say, but the story is not all about red. In some very rare examples, really minuscule as a fraction of the full corpus, you will find other colors such as green. So maybe it's viridiscation based on the Latin. So here we have, I haven't spoken about the veneration of sacred names, Nomina Sacra, which certainly goes on in Ethiopic. Mary in particular gets a lot of special attention. So we have this, the rubricated words here is Mariam, as she's known in Ethiopian Orthodox tradition. She's probably the most revered saint of all. So we have a green Mary, red Mary, yellow Mary. It may be hard to see on the right, but it suggests that maybe there's a color hierarchy, and colors may mean different things or different levels of veneration. I don't know. But the answer has always been no when I put the question out to people. You'd think if you switch red and green, maybe the meaning of those sentences at some level, semantically, sentiment, emphatically, would mean something different, but it doesn't. It may have to the scribe who chose to use green, but what he is trying to communicate is kind of lost with that scribe. So it's something idiosyncratic. The yellow might be just an economic form of gold. So Mary, being special, gets rubricated, I shouldn't call it rubricated, but goldicated. It comes earning, written in gold, actual gold and gold ground into powder to form ink. But only Mary, no one else. And this is probably done at the request of the, in terms of the sponsor who commissioned the work. Probably wanted something extra special and wanted Mary in gold and provided the gold to the scribe. And these are very rare indeed. No, the such happens. Okay, what's nifty here is that bichromosity does not happen just with black, but this is red-green or green on red. There's gold on black. And something I haven't pointed out, where we saw the red-black striping, this happens every time, but the rubrication of words will breaks the cross line. So a word starting in red may end in black. Ethiopic does not use a hyphen, doesn't need to when you have printed word space. Or it could start in red and end in black. And that's fine, both ways, except for Mary. Mary being special, she, Mariam here, is rubricated across the line in two cases. So this indicates there's some rule precedence being applied here for rubrication, and the rule that says you rubricate Mary takes precedence over the striping rules, as they like Mary just so much. And this one with green on red, because I thought it was pretty. And so could resist. Okay, so I should do a quick time check.
No, we're fine.
Oh, okay, so I'm fine. Okay. I'm not going to do Saint Yard justice here. Saint Yard is Ethiopia's most revered saint, most celebrated saint, and you just cannot overstate his contribution to the Ethiopian Tewahedo Orthodox Church. There are whole conferences on his contributions. So, of interest to us is the story of him being whisked away into heaven, where he's brought before an angelic choir, hears the music of heaven, and is returned to earth. He's inspired. He's a man on a mission, probably a teen on a mission, I think, and sets out to recreate the instruments of the angels he saw in heaven, and then record the songs, starting to write the hymns. And he writes volumes and volumes and volumes and volumes of hymns, forming the basis of the Orthodox hymnodiums. So what you hear in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church is supposed to be the music of heaven. To do this, he also has to create a system of musical notation, which is what we see here in the interlinear lines. This is musical notes in three vocal modes: giz, izzle, and ararai. Izzle is in red. Giz is a neutral voice, almost like talking level. Izzle is somber, subdued, for sadder, remorseful occasions, and ararai is uplifting. So there's a whole lot we could say about this, but notation that is in red for izzle may only appear in red and never black. The rubrication here within the hymn, these are subsection starting points. As we saw with hieroglyphics, red is used in this way. Here, there's a system of abbreviation that occurs. I would point out that as we would write it today, we would have put the kind of subheading on its own line and the paragraph text would follow. But here it's embedded because you're not wasting space. This is extremely helpful when you're scanning or skimming through text and looking for certain sections. Your eyes can jump from red to red to red, find what you're looking for. Had these two-letter or sometimes it's a one-letter abbreviation been in black, then you're looking for a needle in a haystack, and it's really hard. So red is really useful in this case. Okay, a more modern book with another example of the music notation. And here, red ovals, the Harit, I want to show the Harit's ultimate role as a kind of divider, where today we would insert a paragraph and it just has to start a new line. You don't waste space in Gez writing, because this is animal skin. It's goat or sheep, and you can't waste a millimeter. So you cram words together. That's okay. You've got the printed word space that allows you to get closer. Here's now to some of the material I've worked with for much of the last 5 years, which can seem overwhelmingly red. So much so. And there's no classic rubrication going on, no veneration appearing here. What we have, this is all structural for the sections. The rest is notation. And maybe at this point, you're curious what red sounds like.
Yeah.
In a Western sense, I would call it blue. So a few moments of red in the izzle mode which is actually not what we're seeing. So it is a chanting tradition. Uh, the previous text and this page, I should say, was written in 1958 in the Ethiopic calendar, which is 65 Gregorian, by a 19-year-old. This is part of his graduate thesis in theology school. This is there's some 400 pages of this text that he wrote. And what he's trying to do is refine the Kwakwam practice. Kwakwam is a specialization within a specialization. So he took the Ararai mode within a Kwakwam, which is usually black, and broke it into 4 submodes. I didn't transliterate it, but it reads the Mame Kumsenasil Marek Safat for these 4 interlinear rows for performing the hymn. But what's interesting about this are these notes. Because these notes inform you how to play an instrument that makes no sound. And though it makes no sound, you can perform it completely wrong and spoil utterly wreck a performance, which you don't want to do. So the goal of this scribe was to help refine the performance of a kwakwam by breaking it into 4 submodes and invent the notation for performing the silent instrument. The instrument in question is a makwamia. So it's a staff, a fancy staff, and that's the 19-year-old, now 78. This work is going to be published in September, all 400 pages with annotation. And the way you would perform it, what it's read is now signaling is motion. So how you would move the staff, from left to right, and proceeds forward to back and down and so on. So up to this point, what we have from red is it's utilized for the striping to introduce a major chapter. It's used for the section headings, for the canon numbers, for the instructional rubrics for the reader. It can also inform structural sections and an oral tone, the isl tone, and now motion. There's one more sensory experience you can get out of red, which is olfactory. And I'll just leave it to you to ask me about that in the question section. So, okay, we've arrived back with the book. What makes this book interesting to me is the Ethiopic, I'll say the word space is read throughout the book. And you would never do that by hand. It's just too tedious, too labor intensive, too error prone to switch pins and rubricate all the word spaces. But with Microsoft Word, if you go to find and replace, use the advanced find and replace, you can find all the black word spaces, replacing with red word spaces. And so this fellow, probably a young person thinking out of the box because no one told him he was in a box, he did this, and it's a great innovation. You've used technology to do something you could not have done before and add it to the practice. So it's alive and well today, obviously. As is that music of the Kanadi of St. Yard. If we were to go to YouTube now, we would hear it, live streams of it from around the world. So it all lives on. And I'll conclude here and just say, well, rubrication, it's certainly as old as Ethiopic writing, plays a role in making text easier to read, easier to parse. And while maybe there's little or just very weak, semantic or sentiment signals from it, the color is an important aesthetic. It played an aesthetic role that's integral to the tradition. It went into decline when the printing press was introduced because it didn't make that leap in technology. It did that technology, particularly for biochromosy. However, you use color fonts every day. And so new modern technology can help revive the practice. And where you use color fonts, you may not be aware, but with emojis. You send or receive emojis. That's coming from a font, it's color. So we can, as I saw demonstrated in that one slide about the samples that uses a font. So I think technology can help revive the practice a bit. Oh, I did get to really speak about the role of youth. But yes, throughout there's this kind of accidental role of youth contributing to the practice, as probably happened with the new book. And it's still evolving as we see. So with that, I'll say Examen Justelin, and thank you for your attention.